There we go. So the host of this show actually thought your name was made up, like you were trying to be some sort of like edgelord about it.
Yeah,
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 like
exactly. And it's like, why of all the names, like why would I hamstring myself
to
by
be
just choosing that as a name?
Chandler. Yeah, Chandler Raper. Why would I
Yeah,
choose that one?
yeah, yeah. No one chooses that last name. That's a name that's forced on you.
Yeah, why wouldn't you pick Chandler Fucks, right?
Yeah,
Because that could be also consensual
yeah,
sometimes. You
yeah,
went right over to Raper, right? That's
yeah,
what this Booker thought.
yeah. Let me make everyone uncomfortable for no reason at all.
Yeah, for just, just because it'll be fun to have a fun name.
Yeah,
Like that's still a thing that comics do. When I first started, I did a lot of black rooms in Minneapolis, Chicago, Indiana, and there was this dude who was in the Chicago in the Midwest scene, I'll just say, and he was a black comic, and his name was Major the Lieutenant of Comedy.
oh my,
And it's so funny because I'll still do like some of these clubs. The club I did in Wilmington last weekend has a lot of like black acts at it. And when I was there, the dude was like, "So like, what do you go by?" And I was like, "Josh Denny." And he's like, "Yeah, but what's your comedy name?" And I was like, "No, it's just Josh Denny. Like, there's not."
this
He's like,
isn't
"That's it."
this isn't rap.
Yeah, he's like, you don't have like an alias?" I was like, "No, us white ones, we don't have aliases."
Lil Joshua.
Yeah, little Josh. I did have a black comic friend of mine named Adrian Washington. He used to call me Dirty Red because I would just be fucked up and say whatever I wanted. And he was like, "Oh, Dirty Red doing his thing." And that was every time. He used to run, he probably still runs these great shows in St. Cloud, Minnesota. He used to run these nights, man, and he would like pack the clubs out. And he just had a different audience than the regular club had. And it was fun. It was like it was first of all, it was younger because this is in St. Cloud is a college town, but it's other than being a college town, it's still like a Minnesota suburb.
Yeah.
And so like the comedy club, you get like it was a lot of 40 plus, and then for some reason he was able to get the college crowd to his shows, which was, a lot more fun to do than sort of like your 40. And keep in mind when I was doing those shows, I was new in comedy. This is 2008, 2007. So I was 23, 24. And, not, I was brand new in comedy. So it was way different than sort of where I'm at now as a comedian. What is this, 14 years later? So, it was a different world, but I never went by Dirty Red. I was never like, put me on a flyer as Dirty Red.
Yeah. That's the name of an album, not the name of the act.
Right, exactly. Although I did think it would be funny. Maybe I'll still do this. I almost don't even want to say it on the thing because I feel like it's so good somebody will take it. But I always thought it would be funny. Do you know the cover of Nas's album, which is like an untitled album, but it's like got his logo, which is the N, and it's like whipped into his back, and it's like scars on his back.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I do a joke kind of like mocking the rules of the N word, but I use the word ginger. And I thought it would be hilarious to do an album cover that is that exact album cover, but it's sunburned into my back instead of like whipped in. And I was like, that would be fucking perfect for a redheaded comic to do.
That would be great.
And just put like a G in my back or a CA or something. I don't know. But it would be funny. I always thought it would be funny to do like that exact album cover as hard as it is, but just with a little sunburn on it,
That would be awesome. I love it when comics like do plays on like classic albums like that. Like Tom Segura did Thrilled.
Oh,
and it's
yeah,
like the Thriller album cover.
Yeah, and that's a great album, by the way. I met Tom right around the time that was released.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I met Tom through another comedian who was like one of the first podcasters, a dude named Patrick Melton, and he had me on his show all the time. But he knew Tom from Florida because he's from Florida, and I guess Tom lived there for a while, or at least did a lot of shows there. I know Bert lived there, but they all kind of knew each other from the Florida scene. And then I met Tom doing shows with him when I first started, and he had just put that album out, Thrilled. And I remember my favorite bit on that album was the one where he talks about looking at a guy's dick in line at the grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where he's just like, I was like, this guy, when I say this guy had a bulge, I mean, most people have a bulge here. His was over here. Like, yeah, I mean,
and the cashier calls him out for
Yeah.
staring at this guy's dick.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It was one of the funniest, and it was one of the first bits I think I'd ever seen Tom do live. And I was like, "Oh, this guy's fucking funny." And then I was like, "Why is this guy not super fucking famous?" And I was just, like 10 years too early. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. He's one of the best.
I'm sure like everyone that saw him back then was like, "This guy is fucking incredible." And it was only a matter of time for him. And you know what? Like one of the coolest dudes, even with all the success he's had, right? Like it hasn't really kind of changed his demeanor. He still bust balls. He still fucks with you. Like he's a
Yeah.
fun dude.
Yeah. He posted something on Instagram a couple days ago where he was just like smiling at the camera, and the caption just says, "I just saw a poor person." It's like he's always just trolling
Yeah.
constantly.
Oh, of course, of course. Well, and then we're in this kind of weird thing now. I mean, it's kind of cool because you and I met through social media, sort of because of like online trolling. And I can't remember. We've
Yeah.
had so many good exchanges back and forth now about different stand-up shit or comedy or whatever. But if I remember correctly, like one of the first exchanges we had was because we didn't agree on something,
Yeah.
and then we actually had like a good back and forth. And I think we
Yeah.
kind of came to a place of like agree to disagree. But it's funny because even with that being the foundation of our interaction, you're kind of like me in the sense of like, even if I don't agree with what you do, I have this sort of very passionate like urge to defend people's right to do what they want to do artistically. I mean, talk about that a little bit. Is that how it is for you?
Yeah. I love arguing with people about anything. Like if I'm like taking a shit and I have my phone in my hand, I'm like on social media just shooting the shit with people. On
Right.
Facebook, I love like trolling people from back home because of course all of my friends and family back in Alabama are conservative, so like, they have a lot of viewpoints that I don't necessarily agree with, but even if I do, I can still like poke fun at shit, and
Yeah, and
when I don't.
you're supposed to be able to make fun of the people that agree with you as well as the people that don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I've found I found lately it's kind of hard to do that because so few, it feels like there are so few people that are willing to kind of make fun of liberal shit or whatever, that it's like overwhelmingly easy to do that because it's such a, it's not oversaturated, and it's like making
Yeah.
fun of conservative shit is horrifically oversaturated.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like I did shows for AFA, the American Freedom Alliance, a couple weeks ago in LA, and there were even moments where I did shit that poked fun at them and at conservatives, and they were like grumbly about it. And I go, yo, like you can't all of a sudden be like, we're the party of free speech, but we also still want to be the pearl clutchers that tried to ban hip hop in the 90s. It's like you can't be both.
Yeah. Well, everyone that knows me on Facebook thinks that I'm the biggest liberal that my town has ever produced. But then I comment one thing on Twitter and I'm automatically the biggest Trump supporter conservative on the internet.
Right.
It's like,
well, just by
there's
defending,
just
by defending something that goes against
there's
the
no
official,
nuance.
right? Yeah,
But
and
and like you say, and like us like agreeing to disagree, people will say like, why are you still friends with that person? Why do you keep them around like to comment on shit? It's like the last thing I want to do is create an echo chamber
right
around me. It's like I like having people around with different points of view because then it challenges me and it challenges them, and we can have a conversation.
And when I started in comedy, I started in Minneapolis, and everyone, to me, I guess it was a shock to move to LA and find out that every comedian is not contrarian like that. You know what I mean? Like, as a comedian, I think baseline, you should probably have some ideas that are kind of fucked up and fringe. And then you might have some things that aren't like that at all, that are more conservative or more traditional or whatever. But I thought it was really interesting how, like, moving to LA, seeing how that wasn't the case. So, like in comedy clubs and stuff, when I started, and there was a lot of like bar one-nighters and things, there were a bunch of different comedians with different backgrounds, different walks of life, but comedy was like that unifying thing that we could all kind of come back to, right? Was like, well, even if I think this about this and you think that about this, we can still objectively joke about those things and not feel like one of us is the bad guy. You know what I mean? Like I can make fun of the shit you believe in and you would laugh too and be like, wow, that's a well-written joke. And I feel like you're one of the few guys on Twitter that engages with like my stuff or with the people that engage with my stuff who still has that mentality, because there are even like majorly famous comedians. I'll use Sarah Silverman as an example, who has made millions of dollars off of being somebody who is unafraid to cross the line, right? And
Yeah.
then now she has this mentality of like, yeah, but some things aren't okay to joke about. And it's like, what the fuck are you like, how can you be a comedian and have that perspective about anything? It's not even about what you think is right or wrong, but don't you think that every person should have the possibility to find the funny in anything? Isn't that what it's about?
It seems like with a lot of people, once they get their money and they've made the name for themselves crossing the lines, now it's time to reel shit back, and now it's not okay to do those things anymore. And it's like, well, that's an easy position to take when you've already made your bread and butter doing that thing that you're now saying no one else is allowed to do.
Right. It's sort of like you're moving the goalposts and you're saying, this was fine when I did it, but times
Yeah.
changed, and
Yeah.
nobody should come in and try to do it the same as me or even maybe better.
Yeah. And I don't think that there's anything, I mean, I think it's crazy to me when it comes to comedy that that's when people decide to start policing what is being said. It's like, everything that is being said is an attempt to be funny. And if it's not funny, then it's not funny. But you should at least be able to try to be funny.
Well, yeah, and it's like, I've had jokes where I have a joke right now that's a new joke that I love, that I think is hilarious. And I've seen it's eaten shit like 2 or 3 times out of the 5 I've done it, right? But to me, it's like, all right, I just got to find the angle to make it work. I got to find the right wording. I got to find the right order of the parts of the bit to figure it out, because I know it's there and I know it's funny. And in Joe Rogan's first special, he there's like a behind the scenes thing when he's traveling, and he says there's 3 stages you go through as a comedian. One is where you're just trying to get laughs. Stage 2 is where you're trying to be funny, but you also become more back of the room. So you're not only doing stuff for you to laugh at, but you also have stuff that you want other people to laugh at. And then the third level is sort of like having some larger collective point behind the material you're doing. And he's like, some people never get to that third level, but that's kind of the natural progression. But there are still bits we all have where we're like, I'm going to do that because I love it. I don't give a fuck if anybody else gets it. And, they're kind of like, they're like the tracks on an artist's album where you're like, what the fuck is that song? That sucks. And they're just like, yeah, we like it, so we put it in, and we don't give a shit if anyone else likes it.
Yeah. I have a joke because I have kids, and I talk about that when I'm doing stand-up. I'll say I have 2 kids. It used to be 3, but it turns out that old saying, if you shake it more than twice, you're playing with it, is not about babies.
Yeah, that's a great
joke. And I think it's like a well-written joke. I don't have like little one-liners like that, but that's just one that I think is fun. My wife hates it, and 90% of crowds like either don't get it or they groan. But it cracks me up to see the look on people's faces, so I still say it just because it's fun to me.
Right. And, there are jokes that we do for each other as comedians that we enjoy that aren't necessarily for the crowd, right? Like, when I do a show, if I know comics on the show, they'll ask me to do something that I like normally never do or isn't part of my normal set, but it's something they maybe heard me do at a mic one time that was like completely fucked up, and it was just a mess. And he's like, and they almost like they don't care if it does well, they just want to see you do it. And sometimes it's because it eats shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like sometimes they're like, no, do that joke, man. Fucking people hate it. Yeah. And it's like, we'll do that stuff for each other. When this show, The Darkest Hour, was a stand-up show at West Side in Santa Monica, that was the whole show. It was like we would go through our notebooks and pull up like, what's the worst thing you've ever written, and then be like, do you have the balls to go do that on stage tonight? I mean,
I was wondering what where the name came from, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it started from that stand-up show, and then we always kind of dreamed of doing a podcast in the green room, because we always said the show in the green room, when I used to run it with Adam Todd Brown, we used to say the conversation in the green room is as funny or often funnier than the material comics take on stage. because we're in the back running through like, okay, how fucked up do we want to be? And there are things that we'll discuss in the green room that don't even make it on that stage.
Yeah.
And so, it's like it's a fun back and forth. It's a fun conversation to have about, like where those lines are. But we always thought this would be kind of like a cool accompaniment to the live show and give people another insight into, how much worse is it even behind the stage of that show.
Right.
And, and I'm sure there are things that people had in their notebooks that they wouldn't even share in the green room of that show.
Yeah. Did you ever listen to Ice House Chronicles?
Yeah, when I did it before. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. When Red Band would have you do his secret shows or whatever, you would go the Death Squad shows.
Right. Yeah.
There would be the podcast going behind it. I did it once, and it was like me, Brody Stevens. I think it was Martin Moreno, who was like a longtime opener for Gabriel Iglesias, and then like Olivia Grace. And we somehow got into this whole thing about, like her, she was telling us about like some famous comic sexually assaulted her, but then wouldn't tell us who it was. So we're all just sitting in this uncomfortable situation of like, she's like, a lot of you guys are friends with him. And then like, so
he's in this room.
Yeah. I was like, is he in the room right now? Like, where is this guy? But it was weird. And then of course it's like Brody Stevens is in the room. And so Brody's trying to redirect, he goes into like audience warm-up mode where he's trying to redirect the conversation away from this awkward cringe situation. And he's like, Josh Denny, host of Ginormous Foods, what's that like? Like he's like starts interviewing me, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever we have to do to like get away from this, but it was, that was what was cool about Ice House Chronicles is there sort of in a way, because there was no format, those conversations would go fucking everywhere.
Yeah. Someone would get up, go do their set. Someone else would jump out on mic, and then they would just like constantly just rotating who was on the show.
Yeah. I think I did it like 1 or 2 times, but those lineups were always the best. Those shows were so much fun. And the Ice House is the best version of the Darkest Hour when we got canceled from West Side. Because my Twitter was not diverse and inclusive enough, was what I was told by the owners of West Side. This was when the whole canceling happened in 2013.
Because of things that you tweeted weren't.
Because of things that I tweeted, and I was
inclusive enough.
Even though the things we had done on that stage were way fucking worse over 4 years.
Yeah.
Than anything I had ever tweeted. Right? Like we had guys go up and argue for pedophilia. I mean, as a bit, obviously. And so, like to me, I've always been blown away at how people can take something really fucked up and make it funny. I have a fascination with it. And so I think that's a big part of why I'm so adamant about defending it and adamant about understanding or trying to get people to understand, like, that comic can make a bit about defending pedophilia and not believe it. Like, that dude did not come off stage and be like, right, guys? Like, why doesn't anybody agree with me? He came off stage and was like, dude, how fucked up would it be if I actually thought that? And that's what drives me nuts about the way the internet treats comics now with what we saw with the Tony Hinchcliffe shit this week. It's like, are you pretending that there's not another layer to this, or there couldn't be another layer to this that makes it not at all what it looks like?
Yeah, I that's a thing that blows me away with this particular one is that's literally what that guy is known for, is roasting people and shitting on them in any way possible.
And being completely unafraid to cross any lines in doing so.
Yeah, and it's like, if anyone that's ever watched an episode of Kill Tony saw that little clip that was posted on Twitter, it's like, that's like some of the tamest shit that he could have said, that he has said.
I'm going to pull this up so people can kind of see it, but I'm going to show, I've got this clip here. And so some people might not know what clip we're talking about. But I've got it pulled up here. Chrome tab, that one, share audio, boom. So we should have this. Okay. So obviously I comment, and this is kind of our thing this week that we got into talking about, but I commented on this, and obviously there's a fucking typo in it, which drives me nuts. But I said, I like how there's zero context included. I'm sure there's more to this. Otherwise, it's just if there is no context, by the way, it's fucking hilarious because it is absolutely the opposite of what you should do in this situation. But here's the clip. So this guy, this Penn Dang or whatever, and this is clearly like a total cancel culture attempted drag. Whereas like I got up to bring up Tony Hinchcliffe. This is what he said. Happy Asian Heritage Month. And then this is what ensues.
Give it up for the one and only Tony Hinchcliffe.
Hello, good evening, welcome, hello. How about one more time for the filthy little fucking chink that was just up here? While all you fucking race traitors are whooping and hollering, I'm back there watching you puking in a fucking bucket. Oh, we making a gunpowder. Oh, you want extra soy sauce. Oh, you borrow money from us. And you guys just eating it up, you fucking pussy.
Give it up for the one.
All right, so there's the clip. It cuts off abruptly, right? And then there's a piece where it absolutely speeds up, right? Speeds up. There's no context there. I don't think he's at the mic at all, so you probably can't hear anything. But to me, it seems like a total hit job because clearly something transpired before that video that caused that, or what I've been told, and I don't know if you heard anything about this, but it sounds like that comedian was doing a lot of like kind of hacky Asian stereotypical material, and Tony was shitting on the audience for eating it up and being like, oh, this is fucking hilarious. But the other thing that people, if they don't know Tony Hinchcliffe, is he's a huge pro wrestling fan. And so it's very possible he was like, I'm just going to go out and be a total heel tonight and shit all over this guy, which is also a different kind of comedy.
Yeah, and he plays the villain. He talks about how he loves to play the villain all the time. Like his dream role, he talks about always wanting to play the Joker because that's what he envisions himself as someone that's just causing mayhem and doing what you shouldn't do.
Did you say mayhem?
Mayhem.
Is that like a special Southern ham? Yeah, well, sometimes we have April showers and then we wash that down with mayhem.
We have Christmas ham, November Thanksgiving ham, and mayhem.
And then mayhem, which we used to kick off summer. Some of y'all got y'all 4th of July, but then we kick it off with mayhem. Oh shit, that's so funny. By the way, your state makes the best barbecue sauce ever invented, which also sounds like a strain of cocaine. You know what I'm talking about?
The white sauce?
Alabama white. Yep. Oh, I did not know. I actually didn't have it in Alabama. I had it in South Carolina, but we went to this restaurant that was like, Southern gastropub.
Yeah.
And they're like, we serve this pulled pork with an Alabama white. And by the way, you have to say white. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Cocaine? And my friend, but the sound guy for our show, Jacob, which we call Cub, he goes, you don't know about Alabama White? He's from I think, where is it? Tuscaloosa, where the Crimson Tide is from? I think he's from there. He's either from there or maybe Huntsville. I don't know. If Cub's watching, he's going to be pissed. Or if he sees this, he's going to be pissed. He's probably actually working on a show that wasn't canceled right now. So, but he was like, you ain't never had Alabama White? And I was like, no. And he was like, it's barbecue sauce made with mayonnaise. And I was like, that can't be good. He goes, dude, eat it. Trust me. And I got it. I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is the most amazing thing I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, it's good. People expect that because I'm from the South, that I'm like a huge barbecue aficionado, and I get questions all the time, especially in LA, well, you're from the South, where can I get some good barbecue here? And I'm like, I don't know, man, anywhere. I don't know what the good barbecue is, and I'm a little fat, so it's obviously I don't care. I'll eat anything, but
yeah,
I do like the Alabama White.
Yeah,
I worked at a restaurant in high school, and we had it there, and I would put that shit on chicken or anything.
Dude, it does work on almost that. Dipping fries in it is amazing. Yeah. If you're somebody who just eats mayo with fries, you should try Alabama White barbecue sauce. It's not hard to make either. You just basically you do substitute a few more ingredients than just mayonnaise and ketchup, but it's pretty amazing.
Well, I could fuck up a grilled cheese, so I'm sure that it would be difficult for me, but
yeah. But I mean, it was I don't know why I derailed on that when we were talking about it, but yeah,
it was the accent.
Yeah, it was. You threw me on. We were talking about mayhem, and
Mayhem.
then I couldn't stop thinking about that Alabama one. My girlfriend still never had it. She's like, "What is that?" And my dad had never had it. My dad is 80 years old. I'm like, "Dad, you've had pussy in like 9 countries, and you've never had Alabama white barbecue sauce." Like,
well, pussy in 9 countries is better. I won't trade it for some Alabama
potentially. And I don't know if it's 9 countries, but it's definitely more than America. You know, like you gotta love when your dad is 80 and you're like, how many unknown brothers and sisters might we have? And he's like, well, you know, are we talking about the American ones, or because over there, I have no idea. It's like, who knows how many half shore leave brothers and sisters I have.
Yeah, 23 and me. That's all of your siblings and you.
Yeah, well, it's funny because one of the Asian actors who was all up in this thread was a dude named Patrick Gallagher, and I go, we might be brothers. You have no idea. Where are you from? Vietnam? Korea? Oh, if you're Korean, there's a 50% chance that some of your cum is my dad's. Some of your cum. I mean, some of your DNA is from my dad's cum.
Well,
you know what I mean? If some of his cum is my dad's, he's got more questions. Or I have more questions.
Tomato.
Yeah. Some of your, somebody's going to make a t-shirt. Some of my cum is your dad's. Oh, shit. But yeah, I mean, it's like, if you know Tony, and this is what drives me nuts about this cancel culture shit, is like, people don't even take the time to go, who is Tony Hinchcliffe and what does he do? They just see white guy, and this is where I talk about the concept of punching down is inherently racist, and I think this is something we might agree on, right? Is this idea that by default, a race of a person making fun of another race of a person is punching down, ignores the reality that there are people in different positions of power or status or wealth, and race has nothing to do with it. So it drives me nuts when I was like, if you think me making fun of Oprah or Jay-Z is punching down because they're black, I hate to tell you, but you're the racist.
Yeah, the concept of punching down is always weird to me. And it's like, I don't pretend to know all the, intricacies of racism and, all the social theories, but just the idea that I'm above someone and that I'm punching down at them, like from my ivory tower, just feels weird to me. It's like, I'm not putting myself on that pedestal. Right. So why are you?
Yeah. And that's a strange, to me, that's like a much more pernicious thing, because it's almost like saying that who we are is stationary based on only things like race or sexual orientation or whatever, which, to be honest, was a big thread behind my comments that got me canceled in 2018, was this idea of like, you can't just lump groups of people together under this common stereotype. And it's like lumping white people into this oppressive, wealthy, privileged stereotype is no different than lumping all black people together in a criminal, nefarious, evil stereotype, or any of the stereotypes that have followed that race, for 50, 60 years. No matter how true it might be in some cases, if you start going all blank are blank, you're contributing to the problem. We're not making progress at all.
Yeah. There are no monoliths.
Yeah, exactly. And so to me, that was kind of what I was saying in my obtuse Josh Denny hyperbolic way. And of course it was not received that way, but that's fucking 3 years old. I'm tired of talking about it. And it's funny because it's 3 years old. I'm tired of talking about it, but it's the first thing that gets brought up anytime we get one of these exchanges going on Twitter. This person, again, they don't do any research and realize that all of this sleuthing has been done years ago. And every time I tweet something unpopular and people go, why do you leave Food Network in your bio? It's to show how fucking retarded these people are, that they literally are just like, what's his bio say? Food Network, get his show canceled. And it's like, yeah, man, it's been off for 3 years.
And that's always so like, wow, because I see where you comment where people will do that. And it's like, why are you trying to get someone canceled from a show that you obviously don't watch?
Right, because if
you watched it, you would know that it's not on anymore.
Right, if you were a fan, you would know it's been off for 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So like, you know, and now it's become this fun thing where fans and followers and stuff, I'll be like, we got one, guys. And they're like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah, I
and
saw
it's
you
funny.
just posted one like
Earlier
a couple
today.
hours ago.
Yeah. Well, it was a woman who was like, you know, how dare you stand up for this racism? And it's like, no, I'm standing up for the fact that, you know, there's context to what we do as comedians. This is what's weird to me. And I posted this in a comment. It's like, people are smart enough to know that every movie is not a documentary, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't watch, you know, Django Unchained and go, wow, this all really happened, right?
Yeah, I
And
was
it's
just
like,
thinking. I was thinking about that movie earlier today because people will say, you know, like, well, it's never okay to use this word or to use that word, and well, Leonardo DiCaprio used those words in Django Unchained.
many times.
Yeah,
I think Leonardo DiCaprio invented new pronunciations of the N word. I was like, where is the R in that one?
well, being from the South, I've heard all of those.
Oh yeah,
pronunciations
you've
before.
heard you've heard the R, you've heard it pronounced with the R in front of the N,
Yeah.
which is a very complicated pronunciation.
But
That's the Creole N word. The R goes in front of the N.
But yeah, it's like if we can say that it's okay for him to say it there, it's because we understand the art of it, and we understand that in the end, he's going to get his, you know, comeuppance, and it's not going to be in his favor. Well, let's see where this joke is going to go. Let's see where this bit is going to go, because this is also an artistic choice and someone playing a character. It may be some version of you, but you're playing a character.
Well,
or
even if you're up there like, these are the worst thoughts that I ever have, it's like, it's not like you believe them or you agree with them, right? Like, we can't help at least me, I can't help my brain from thinking of the worst case scenario when I see things in public. Like, and it's sort of like, oh my God, how fucked up would it be if this was the situation? You know what I mean? And so sometimes it's a manifestation of that. It's like not like a guilty conscience in that, like, you believe in those things, but you go, oh, I thought this horrible fucked up thing and it made me laugh that I was even capable of thinking that. And I want to share that feeling with other people because they have also thought these horrible fucked up things and laughed at it. And that's what we bond over. It's not that we agree that it's right. Right. And like, even going back to 2013, people being upset about a joke I told on that, about something my dad said. And the concept of that joke, and I brought this joke up on the TMZ podcast to try to kind of explain the logic, and that went south, if you haven't seen that. But
is that on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. But it's by the way, the tagline clip from TMZ was like, Josh Denny hurls N-word 4 times on Van Lathan podcast. It's like, no, I'm trying to walk you through a story about a bit, like explain a bit that my father said something really racist to me. And the funny thing about the bit is that my retort wasn't that racism is wrong. It was just that his racism was outdated. Right.
Yeah.
And so I had new racism. I go, oh my God, that's so wrong. And then this is actually what it is, which is just a newer version of racism. And that joke is satire on the fact that people who often correct your fucked up behavior have this weird blind spot that allows their fucked up behavior. There's layers to the bit. And there are these people in the world, blacks. No, I'm kidding. There are these people in the world, though, that just don't. Actually, they're often fucking white people. Who,
I would say most of the time.
Most of them, they just don't believe that extra layer is there, or they're not smart enough to see it.
Yeah. And I think that goes to the other joke that you were sharing the other day, or that someone shared of you, the tweet about Dan Snyder.
Right. That's one that people
same...
bring. That's one you defend a lot. We should talk about that. That's one you defend a lot because it gets brought up in these threads a lot. And people go, there's absolutely no way this is funny. But it's the same premise of the joke. And you are one of the few people that I think gets it and is like, no, structurally, you have to understand it's a sound joke, right? I'll pull it up. I'll find it and pull it up.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's fine. Like, it's fine if people are saying, I just don't think that it's funny. Okay, comedy is subjective. You take Dave Chappelle, or George Carlin, like the most successful comedians of all time. Not everyone likes them. Not everyone likes every joke they do.
I know. I actually, one of my most unpopular opinions as a comedian, I think Richard Pryor was horrifically overrated, and I get a lot of shit for that. But just because I think Pryor kind of came right to the cusp of what he was capable of, and then fucked his life up. I think how his great shit hadn't happened yet, and you sort of saw that progression with Chappelle. You saw that progression with George Carlin. I think a lot of the heroism of Richard Pryor is about what he could have been and not what he actually was, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest Richard Pryor fan, but I also think that comedy.
But I respect people
comedy
that
is
think he's the biggest. If people go, for me, he's the greatest of all time. I go, okay, that's fine. Like, I won't argue anybody about it,
Comedy doesn't always hold up and stand the test of time. And I think that's the problem when it comes to people like Richard Pryor for me, is that if I was there, if I lived in that time period, I would probably get it more.
Yeah. Well, and so much of it is like very 1970s. This is, if you grew up watching All in the Family, that was very relevant to that time frame. So it kind of makes sense. And also, a lot of the shit he did had never been done before, whereas now we've seen black comics do that same kind of shit for 30 fucking years, right?
Yeah.
Of like, we haven't seen white people. Look at the white people doing this. Like, the funniest shit he did was sort of the riffing, his Live on the Sunset Strip or whatever, or the one he did in Long Beach. One of the funniest bit of that is the beginning, when people are still walking in and sitting down, and he's talking about white people and black people interacting in that environment. And it's like some of the best crowd work you've ever seen. And, it's just not, it's really, really great. But at this point, we've seen probably every Def Jam comic, every HBO half-hour comic do some version of that kind of stuff. Like, white people be like this, black people be like this.
The first stand-up special I ever owned was Chris Rock, Bigger and Blacker. So Richard Pryor is not going to be shocking to me. And that's what comedy needs, is the shock of the joke, or, to see someone saying something that you don't expect them to say. And when you've seen it that many times with people like that, you're going backwards, and it just isn't going to have the same punch.
Yeah. So here's the joke that everyone hates. This is from 2014, by the way. Okay. So this is the other thing that people don't understand. You can't take jokes from 7 years ago and try to just look at them neutrally, right? This bit was in response to 2014. There was this huge push for the Redskins to change the name. And Daniel Snyder was super dug in, right? People probably don't remember this because he did cave and he did change the name last year. And they haven't actually changed the name yet. But you get the concept of the joke. The joke is, after public outcry, he's changed the name to something more offensive than what it was in the first place, right?
Yeah.
That's the premise of the bit. So whether you think it's okay that I wrote these words to make the point or to make the bit or for that to be the punchline, it's just structurally, it is a correct structure for a joke.
Right. And that's,
we can agree.
People say, like, how can you defend the use of this word? And it's like, we can argue about that all day. Right. What we can't argue about is whether or not the joke structurally makes sense. So let's only talk about that. And when you talk about that, it makes perfect fucking sense.
Right. Right.
I mean, it is a well-written joke, because insert where someone's from, sand, whatever, add the N-word behind it. That is a common derogatory term used for people.
And how do you, so this is what I would love to pontificate with these fucking dorks is, give me something more offensive than Redskin that doesn't include that word and that would work in the joke. Some
dipshit that was saying he could have taken that a million different ways. And it's like, okay, what were the ways?
Right. Give me 3 other ways that would clearly be more offensive than Redskin. And I don't think it exists.
All of his things were like slave owners or like shit like that. And it's like, yeah, but that's not the joke.
Right. Right.
You're not understanding how it works.
Right. It has to be a Native American slur. right?
Yeah.
And so what is worse than Redskin? This is the only thing I thought of. Okay. And then
Yeah.
also give me a little bit of credit for coming up with prairie, right? Like
Prairie is a funny word.
I'm
Prairie
going
is a
back.
funny word to use.
I'm going to the what was the fucking game we all played on Mac on Apple IIs? Oregon Trail. I'm going back to Oregon Trail speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's to me, it's like this. By the way, this joke in 2014, that was 3 years before Ginormous Food. I think I had maybe like 1,000. This was even, I think, before Jesselnick Offensive, or it might have been after, but I did not have a lot of followers. And all of these like quote tweets and retweets are from 2018, where people were like, see, here's proof that he's racist. And somebody goes, that joke is stolen. Good luck finding it from before I originally tweeted it, because people have told me it was stolen before, and then they found that their fucking tweet of it was 2 years after I tweeted it. Believe me, I looked this up before I posted it, because I was like, somebody had to have thought of this joke beforehand, and nobody had fucking posted anything like that.
Another thing that gets ignored with this particular joke is that you're not the bad guy in this joke. Dan Snyder is the bad guy.
Right.
Because you're speaking from him. You're taking on his character, and what would his character do in this situation?
Well, back when Weekend Update had balls, this was the kind of jokes that they would do. I mean, if you read this in a Norm Macdonald, even in a Colin Jost Weekend Update voice, or Michael Che, if Michael Che did this joke on SNL, people would laugh hysterically as a Weekend Update joke.
Yeah.
It's totally how it plays out. And so that's what is always crazy to me, is this idea that people just, they think because the N-bomb is in there that it renders the joke powerless, useless, and meaningless aside from that. And it's like, it's just amazing to me. Like the idea of like, could you have made Django without the N-word? Maybe. Would the Leonardo DiCaprio character have been as evil, and would you have rooted for him to die as much as you did it without that word? And I would argue absolutely not. Like need that word instantaneously establishes who the good guys are in the movie and who the bad guys are in the movie, right? And so it is some people might go, well, it's lazy writing, and I would say that's racist. But but it immediately establishes these are the evil fucks. This is who we root against. It's kind of like and if you really want to get psychological about it, there is no buildup to Darth Vader in the original Star Wars. Like they just show us a big guy in a black helmet in a black robe, and we are automatically to know that's a bad guy. There's no build up or whatever. The motherfucker just walks in blacked out, and the audience is just supposed to know this is the bad guy. And so when you look at that and you go, well, people are smarter, they don't need that. No, they're not. They're very simple.
Sorry, I just realized there were comments here.
You'll get lost in that world.
I'm gonna click off of that. I've actually never seen Star Wars. But
wait a minute, you've never seen Star Wars?
I've never seen Star Wars. I've not seen a lot of the more popular movies that people love. Star Wars in particular, just because I feel like that's a movie that you watch when you're a kid, and my dad hated Star Wars when he was a kid, and so it just was never on in our house.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I was never like a super fan, and I went back when the new ones came out. Like my girlfriend had never seen the originals, and we went back and we watched the originals, and I was like, wow, these are real piece of shit pieces of film. Like there's no character development. I get you don't need exposition, but I mean, dude, it's one of the most presumptuous, lazy scripts in the history of cinema, where there's just like nothing is articulated to the audience. You kind of got to guess at all of it. I don't care about any of the characters. Nothing about it is compelling to me. It's just that first Star Wars is one of the biggest piles of shit ever. And I think it's for the people that love it. I get it. You grew up with it and you loved it before. You were old enough to realize what a piece of shit it was. So there's some nostalgia to it for you, but you have to be able to, as an adult, look back and go, that's a piece of shit. Like the Star Wars, the first Daisy Ridley Star Wars was light years better a film than the first Star Wars ever made.
My daughter and I we decided a couple years ago that we were just going to like sit down and watch all the Star Wars. And we got 20 minutes into the first one. And she was like, "Can we turn this off?" And I was
It's
like, "Yeah,
the worst.
thanks for asking."
I don't know how that held. I mean, I guess back then we hadn't even invented jerking off yet. So I can imagine how in the 70s that would hold a kid's attention. But it doesn't surprise me that your daughter was bored as shit because I was like, this is fucking boring. I don't want to watch this. I'd rather watch a documentary about sundials than this fucking piece of shit.
I think it's just the special effects were next level for the time period. And
yeah, like I think you have to have never held a cell phone to enjoy the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
but,
I just couldn't get into it. I didn't like it as a kid. I watched it again as an adult. That's why I laughed when like I was working in video stores when I was like 20, 21. And that was when all of the like early 2000s was when all the new Star Wars movies were coming out, the prequels.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, these prequels suck. And I go, the fucking first movies suck. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. At least this has like slightly better acting and a little bit more character development. So it's just like, dude, that's another one of my unpopular opinions. I don't like Star Wars and I don't like Richard Pryor. Well, I don't dislike Richard Pryor. I just don't think he's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. I see we got off on the Star Wars. I see what you're talking about though with the they just simply made Darth Vader black to
right
to make him the bad guy.
Yeah, just like just put him in a black fucking costume. Everybody will know.
Yeah, they'll get it.
You know, make his helmet look like a big penis and and have him chase the white bitch and everyone will know. Scream is not much different than the original Star Wars movie.
Scream?
But it's just Scream. Yeah, just the guy in the ghost mask with the thing. That's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Right? And so so it is weird that like people can enjoy stuff like that has limited character development and then use a movie like Django or something and go like, you could have gotten away without that word. It's like, no, by the end of this movie, you have to go from loving this Leonardo DiCaprio character to hating him because he's very charming and he's very, he's wealthy. He's extra. And they're trying to, again, this is character development. And you have to show that even someone who is this most sophisticated, well-respected in society, wealthy, he's a power move, that he has this horrendous worldview and this horrendous view of black people. And you're trying to create this concept of, or this feeling in the audience of like the way that black people were dehumanized by their owners back then. So you can't cut any of that shit out that happens. And you're watching it through Christoph Waltz's eyes, right? Like Christoph Waltz is someone from Europe. He's more cultured. He doesn't believe in any of that shit. And so you are him in the story of like, I have to, to get what we want, I have to not let this shit bother me. And then by the end, Christoph Waltz is just like, fuck it, and shoots him anyway because he just can't handle it anymore. And, it's like, to me, it's so obvious what the director and writer, same person, is trying to do in this movie is build these narratives. Comedians do the same thing in the way they tell stories, in the way they set up the characters in their bits, the way they play themselves in their material. And nobody gives comedy that same leeway of you're creating a paint. It would be like looking at a painting and believing it's a portrait, no matter what it is. Like, oh, that guy has 7 penises. I guess there was a dude one time who had 7 penises, and this is a picture of what that looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so the very first time that I ever did stand up was actually on Kill Tony.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Yeah.
In 2014. And the very first bit that I ever did on stage was just like a story about how, I don't know if I've said this before, but my wife is black. She's half black, half Asian. And so,
wait, is she half black, half Asian, has a Southern accent?
No, she's from LA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, please tell me you hit the trip. Please tell me you hit the cycle. No. I met a Vietnamese woman in Mobile, Alabama, who was like adopted.
Yeah.
And so she was like full Vietnamese or Korean. If she's Korean, I apologize. I don't remember. But she had a full Southern Belle accent, and it was the most hilarious thing I ever encountered, where I was just like, oh my God, this combination, I've never seen this combination. She's like, how y'all doing? And you're just like, that face does not go with that voice.
I saw some like weird, I don't know if it was like Vice or who, but some documentary, like short documentary about all these Asian people that have like grown up in the South for generations. I think they were like in Mississippi. And these ladies, like, if I close my eyes, this is just like, this is every old lady.
Honey Boo Boo.
That I knew. Yeah. But anyway, so the first bit that I did on Kill Tony was about how, because I have a Southern accent, like people automatically assume that I'm racist. You know, just when you hear me talk. And so the story that I told was about my wife's uncle, who of course is black, asking me,
why is it of course, Chandler?
Well, because she's black, and so
yeah, but maybe
DNA.
maybe her uncle's the Asian side. How is it of course?
He was on the black side.
Yeah.
And he asked me, like, oh, like, you say nigga a lot, don't you? And like, that's the bit, is like me telling that story, and I quote him saying that.
Yes, you're quoting a black person saying.
I'm quoting him saying it to me. It's a story that happened to me.
Right.
And so I just like tell, that he said that, and then like the punchline is just me just saying, well, like, what's a lot?
Yeah. Right. Which is right. You're not worried about correcting that you're racist. You're concerned about the quantity. The bit works the same way, because you are worried about the thing you shouldn't be worried about, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's fun. Not to be the guys who explain bits on this show.
Yeah.
But so that morons who fucking clip this shit out at some point to make their case that I'm a Klansman, or it's like, that's what makes the bit funny, is the idea of, you're like, well, wait, what's a lot?
Yeah. Right? And anyone who like knows how comedy works also knows that that's not what I really said to him. That wasn't really my answer.
Right. But you thought, how fucking funny would it be if I said, how much is a lot?
Yes.
Right.
But so anyway, I did that bit on there, and it got a good reception. Everyone laughed, and it was fine. That was in 2014 as well as that tweet that you had was. And that's a joke now that I don't know if I would still, I mean, I haven't done that bit in forever. It was like the first one I did, and it's like I don't even love it anymore.
Right.
But he loved it. My wife's uncle loved that I did that joke about him. Her dad, everyone loved it. They wanted me to tell that story at his funeral when he died, and I was like, I don't know all of these other people though. Like, I don't think that joke is going to play.
Well, it's like so that's the funny story, is like one of the videos that everybody got mad about from it back in 2013 was me doing a set, and I was doing the joke I referenced on the Van Lathan podcast, which basically is like, my dad, I tell my dad my girlfriend's Middle Eastern, and then his way of trying to make a joke was, at least she's only sand nigger and not all the way nigger. And I was like, Dad, it's post 9/11. Like, everybody knows sand nigger's way worse, right? And so again, the joke is, I am correcting his racism for being outdated. I'm not correcting the racism itself. I only did that bit at that show because my girlfriend, who is Middle Eastern's ex-boyfriend, and his brother and all their friends, who are all very Iranian, came out. It was his birthday, and they all came out to that show, and they all sat in the front. And her ex-boyfriend Aiden came up to me, and he goes, that bit was on my album. Yeah. And he's like, there's no way you're going to do that bit tonight. He's like, I'll give you $50 if you do that bit. And I was like, I'll fucking do the bit. I don't give a shit. I was like, I'll do that bit right on stage. And I did the bit, and it was fine. But it is funny, in the video clip, which I recently put back on YouTube, you can hear a black woman in the back of the audience just go, wow. Which is probably my favorite reaction to a joke ever, because she didn't even need to see where it was going. She just goes, wow. Yeah.
And you know what? Wow's a fine reaction.
It's a fine reaction, right? You can be like, because, by the way, when he said it to me, my internal reaction was, wow. And then it's like, how do I make it funny? How do I make it look funny? And how do I make myself look like ignorant, but more modernly ignorant? It's like, that's where your brain goes. You go, how do I be as wrong as him and just a newer version? Which I think is a lot of us. Like, we're not necessarily better people than our parents. We're just the same way they are in different ways, based off of our experiences today. Right. And so, you know, it's like, again, all these jokes, there's layers, there's context to it. And people on Twitter, these people that are sort of fighting in an intellectually dishonest way, it's all about like, no, the only way you would ever say that word is if you're being racist. And it's like, no, I could be mocking racism. I could be mocking I could be mocking things other people say. I could be mocking, you know, like in the Tony Hinchcliffe case, I could be mocking somebody else who's playing to their own stereotypes. Right. And so, you know, there's a lot of, it's just sort of a weird thing. And I want to ask you this, because talking about comedy and stuff, do you think that people do that because in a deep down way, I think people look at what we do and most people go, I could do that. I don't think a lot of people look at Leonardo DiCaprio and The Revenant and go, I could do that. But I do think most people look at what we do on stage and go, I could do that. You know what I mean? And so I think they put themselves in that mindset and go, well, I could do that. But if I did that, I would never do that. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's just because they think what we do is so easy and accessible and that there's really nothing to it.
I think that there's some of that in it, but I think the main thing is just that it's so easy for them to look at Leonardo DiCaprio and know that it's
easy for all of us. Am I right?
Yeah, right. Easy on the eyes.
Show me someone it ain't easy for.
They know that
listen, if I meet that gentleman, he can have all my mayhem.
They know that he's playing a character. They know that his name in the film isn't Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right.
And because you're not going on stage as Big Red or whatever the fuck you said.
Dirty
Red. Because you're going up there as Josh Denny or you're tweeting jokes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
as Josh Denny. I think that's where the problem is that it's hard for some people to separate who you actually are versus who you're playing.
Well, don't you think that's a big part of like how podcasting has helped comedy? Because it's given the audience a peek at behind the curtain of who people really are. Did I lose you? Oh man, he's frozen. He's probably playing with his mayhem. Move. See if we get Chandler back. So this is the fun part about technology is people's fucking shit freezes. Yep. We lost him. How about you guys? How's everyone in the chat doing? Good, I hope. Is he loading up? Now this is racist. Just blacked out the screen. Nothing more racist than that, I guess, right, guys? Quick Q&A. Lando, are you going to Austin anytime soon to perform? Maybe July or August. Working on it. The summer will be... I will say this about live dates. The one thing I will say I learned about Wilmington and New York and everything else is there's still a lot of like... comedy is... It's good to be back doing shows, but it's still not the same. Still not the same with all of the COVID shit, with all the protocols that clubs have, with all that stuff. And, you know, it's still a fucking pain in the ass to do live shows compared to the way it used to be. You know, it's there. Some of the bars, I want to be careful about how I say this, but like some of the bars are good at it. Like the two I've been to recently to do stand up at are pretty good at managing all of the different shit that you have to do to comply in every state is different. But that's why I say like, so if I do more live dates through the summer before all this shit all the protocols and everything are done away, they will be in Texas. They'll be in South Carolina. They'll be in these places where they're really loose with the fucking protocols to begin with. Cause I just don't want to deal with, and traveling right now fucking sucks. Like unless you're making significant money to do a show, you really have to weigh the fucking pain in the ass that is traveling right now. So yeah, it's like I really do have to question like, do I want to go travel and do gigs and stuff and make okay money, Or do I just want to stay in town and build my podcast and make okay money? You know, that's kind of the catch-22 about doing live dates. You know, and in here in LA, like the clubs, some of the clubs are like, you need to be vaccinated to perform here, which I don't know if that's quite legal, but it's interesting to kind of see that that's already a thing and comics have different opinions about it. So we'll see, man. I don't think we're really out of the woods yet with stand-up stuff, but I'll tell you, Austin is fucking cool. Some of my friends in comedy are doing real cool shit down there, and I would love to go be a part of it, even if it's for a couple nights, even if it's just to go hang out. That would be cool. So yeah, Austin probably sometime in the summer, and then I'm really trying to do some stuff with Ty Rivera, who I fucking love, and I think a lot of people who like me will love Ty Rivera if they don't know who he is. So I want to do some stuff with Ty. We've talked about trying to do stuff in the Southeast, like Wilmington, North Carolina, South Carolina. I would do probably, somebody said Charleston, definitely Charleston, maybe. Somebody said House of Laughs is more concerned about firearms, so masks are nothing to them. No, I don't think we had any issues with firearms there. By the way, House of Laughs in Wilmington, Delaware, one of the best run fucking clubs I've been to. The staff there is awesome. I did a video about their chef in the kitchen. The young dude is pretty fucking good in the kitchen. The food is all great. It's one of the cleanest, most best run comedy. I mean, it's only 90 days in. It should be awesome, right? But they do a great job there, and go support them, man. It's starting. I was explaining to these guys, you're getting into the tough months now, where even you might even have some big name comics that have trouble filling seats because the weather's getting nice, and people that have been inside all year are not going to necessarily be like, yeah, let's spend $100 and go sit inside and watch something. Now, I do think people want to see live entertainment, so I think it's kind of ways out, but it's also a competitive market. You got Punchline Philly, you've got Helium in Philly, so you got some big clubs. They eat up a lot of the big names. So these guys got to get kind of creative and pluck some dudes and some cats that have not really been booked a lot in those areas that have followings or whatever. So, but I hope they do well because the owner's great. The staff is fucking great. And if you're in that area and you want to go see a good show, go to House of Laughs, man. Support those guys because I want to see them make it. They're doing great shit. And we had fun, man. Even though some of the show, we had a show Thursday night. They normally don't do Thursdays. That show Thursday night, we had 3 people, but boy, was it nice to run the new hour in front of almost nobody because boy, was I fucking rusty. But yeah, I got to do it for 3 people. And fortunately 2 were a couple, and they basically, the show just became for them, and they were very good sports and they were fun. But they do stuff on normally Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So go, if you're in the area, go see them do club. But as far as other dates, yeah, if there's anything more this summer, it'll be the Southeast. It'll be Austin. I want to do San Antonio. We did the pilot of Ginormous Food there. There's some cool people there I'd love to coordinate, do a show with. And then Dallas. I think all those would be good. Maybe Nashville. I like Nashville. That would be a good place. Charleston, I love. I always tell people if I ever left LA, I would go to Charleston because it's my favorite city that I've been to ever. So love Charleston. Definitely want to do shows there. I don't really know comics and comedy in Charleston though. The only people I know that are there are like the Danny McBride people. They shoot all their shit down there in South Carolina now and move their whole production there. But none of those guys are stand-ups. Let's see. Other questions. I heard a rumor you're a former Division I hockey player. I didn't play Division I. I wanted to play Division I. That's why I moved to Minnesota. I thought I was going to be a Division I hockey player. And then I just got into music and shit. But Division I was a goalie, and I was pretty good in Pee-wees. I played for the Delaware Mighty Ducks, not as famous as the Disney Mighty Ducks. We did have the same number of black players, which was fun. But yeah, no, I was good in Pee-wees. We didn't have high school hockey where I lived, so I played through high school, and then when I moved to Minnesota, I moved at sort of at the end of the season, and when they told me like you could go out for the team, I was basically told by the coaches and players like, yeah, dude, all these kids have been playing together since they were super young. So even as a junior, you would not play higher than junior varsity. And I was like, fuck that. I don't want to do that. Do I still have my bass guitar? I never had a bass guitar. I don't play bass. I play guitar, and I have that still. Let's see. There was another one I saw. Oh, incoming info on your upcoming show on Gavin's network. I can tell you that the first episode of that is being shot this week, and we'll see what happens. I haven't talked to Gavin since I've been back from the East Coast, so I got to touch base with him. But I'm excited about it, and I hope you guys, if you guys are members of censored.tv, I hope you watch it and you dig it. But I don't want to talk more about what it is because I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm excited about it. I've been writing it for the last 2 weeks, the first pilot episode, and kind of getting a feel for the format, and it'll be a half-hour thing. And it should be fun. It's not a podcast. It's not going to be a podcast. It's going to be like an actual show. Yes, it is a paid site, censored.tv. That's the website, censored.tv. So go join. There's a lot of cool shit on there now. You could obviously watch the full video versions of Gavin's podcast. It's like Compound. It's like Locals. It's like all these things. And that show will only be available on Censored. It won't be available on Locals. The Darkest Hour will still be out for everybody. The Wake Up Call will still be on Locals, and then this thing we're doing will just be for that. So go check that out. What brand goalie pads you have? None now, motherfucker. I had Heaton. I had the Martin Brodeur Heaton goalie pad. Well, I had Cooper goalie pads, and then I had Heaton gloves and sticks. What stick did you use? The fucking Ron Hextall Sherwood, dog. That was the stick back in the 90s. So that's fun. This is cool. You guys have some decent questions and stuff. But yeah, Austin, stay tuned for that. I'm hoping to do more of these. I guess we lost Chandler for good. He probably had something die. Says he has having technical difficulties. That's probably an interesting way to be like, the family came home early and now the house is noisy. But yeah, that's it. We're good. Oh yeah, somebody says Jake Golden. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff on there. There's a lot of Copper Cab was doing a show on there for a while. I don't know if he's still doing his show, but there's real cool stuff. And listen, I'm always looking for places to do whatever the fuck I want, man. And that's what I love about Gavin. That's what I love about what he does. He does whatever the fuck he wants, whatever he thinks is funny. And listen, that's what this whole episode is about. That's what the Darkest Hour is about. And Tailspin or DuckTales. Oh, well, I don't necessarily like DuckTales as much as I like the theme song covers that I've heard over the years. Those are funny. But yeah, this has been a fun episode. Even though he's gone now, thanks to Chanler Raper Chanler Raper for coming on momentarily and leaving us all wanting more, which I think is how we feel with most rapers. Am I right? Thank you guys for tuning in to the Darkest Hour. We're right at the time anyway. It's about an hour 10. Subscribe. This is on all the podcast platforms. You can subscribe to YouTube. You can watch it on Twitter live when we're there. Go to my locals if you want to support me. If you want to check out new episodes of The Wake Up Call, you can also see my old TV show for the Food Network on there. It's the only place you can find those old episodes. And I hope you guys like that stuff. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you on the next one.